We are back again. As always, super excited about this next guest, joined by Coach Ettin, Coach Sky Ettin, Princeton University. Really special university that is, you pretty much can recruit internationally with the Princeton name. So I know there's a lot of guys across the country, across the world that are excited to hear some details about what you key in on, what you look for. But I'd like to introduce Coach Sky Ettin. I'd like you to give us a couple minutes and tell us about your journey real quick, introduce yourself, and let us know how you got to where you are.
Well, awesome, Mike. I appreciate it. And, I appreciate you guys having me, for the people listening, we've had a long relationship and, we've recruited a lot of your guys and, we got a really good one in Mason Hooks right now. So
Yep.
that I know you spent a lot of time, you guys both have spent a lot of time developing and working with, and, it really shows. So first, I appreciate it, and I'm excited to dive in. But yeah, my journey's a little unique, right? I wasn't Division I player. I was Division III player. I started to figure out that I wanted to coach in college, right? I knew I wanted to be around the game, but I started to figure out in college that I wanted to coach. So I just started working camps, right? I worked Princeton's camp, Rutgers, Rider, anything that was around me, right? I'm from New Jersey, so I actually grew up, as crazy as it sounds, in Princeton, which, is nuts.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I grew up, my mom still has her house. She lives 4 minutes from the gym.
Wow. And you went to Princeton High School, right?
I went to Princeton High School.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm a local guy, man. I joke with everyone. I'm the only person to be a camper, a counselor, an intern, director of ops, volunteer assistant, paid assistant. You know what I mean?
Awesome. That's awesome.
So it's been a fun journey, and, out of college. So I worked camps, and then I interned with Princeton basketball. And I just got really lucky that when I was graduating, the director of ops, which at our level is kind of the most entry level job, right?
Mm-hmm.
He moved on, and I had kind of been doing his job a little bit as an intern and helping out. And Coach Henderson gave me a shot, and I've been able to move up since. So it's been great.
Big time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I also saw you were recognized for one of the 30 coaches under 30 years of age, as far as impactful, influential young assistant coaches across the country, which I'm sure was a pretty awesome honor to get a little.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. There's a lot of really good coaches, man. And I, it's really hard to get in this business, right? And, I'm so fortunate and so lucky that I was able to get in with Coach Henderson, and, I'm going on year 7 with Coach, and, he's great. He's great to work for. We got a really good thing going here at Princeton. As you mentioned, Princeton's a really special place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So some of that recognition is obviously because of the place I'm at. So I'm really appreciative of it.
That's awesome. And we can all tell you're hustling to make sure that you keep your status. You know what I'm
Trying,
saying?
man.
Yeah,
Trying.
yeah, we could tell. We could tell. So let's dive right in. A question that I love to open up with the coaches I get on initially is your particular pet peeves. If you're looking at a player, practice a game, whatever it might be, you have any particular pet peeves in a guy that you're looking for, a guy you're keying on, a guy that maybe catch your eye?
I'll first tell you maybe a little strange one that, people might laugh at, but
please.
I cannot stand, like, when you're going through warm-ups and there's music in the gym and someone has their headphones in, like that right away, to me, probably not going to recruit you, because it's telling me, and again, like, I'm not right necessarily, but what I feel like is it's telling me that you don't care about your teammates, that you care about yourself. You're more concerned about yourself than the team. And so that's a big pet peeve of mine is headphones in when, you should be embracing with your teammates. You should be talking with your teammates. You should be in that moment with them.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's the first one. And then, it's the stuff that you probably hear, like, if you're not going to run hard when I'm in the gym, or another coach is in the gym, then I know you're not running hard when no one's in the gym. Right. So I think, the effort part of it is you watch immediately. You see really quickly, like, if guys aren't playing hard, guys aren't talking on the court, like those things, because if they're not going to do it when their eyes are on them, then they're certainly not going to do it behind closed doors. So I think those are some of the pet peeves that really, really get to me early.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because it's not all about, your shooting percentage right out of the gate. It's about things that stand out but you as a person, you as a teammate.
For sure.
Yeah. It's big.
For sure. I think there's a lot of adversity you face, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later in college, but, It's got to be how, the person, right? Like that's got to be, especially here at Princeton, that's so valuable to us, is the type of kid that they are. Because this place is bigger than all of us, right? In a good way. So that's really important.
That's awesome. How important is style and fit? I mean, some guys out there looking for the best available player. Each school kind of has their style and fit. What is the Princeton style, and what, are there particular things you look for in a future Princeton Tiger as far as style and fit go?
Yeah, really good question. It's definitely good players, right? Like that's first, like even, Princeton is known, and we are known for skill, right? Passing, shooting.
Yeah.
We've been shooting it quite well this year, and it's been nice. It makes everyone's
awesome.
job easier.
Awesome to see. Yeah.
So, obviously those things are fit, but we're also big in development here. So we're not going to turn away someone that doesn't fit. Like, for example, we had this kid, Richmond Ariraguzzo, who started playing basketball in 8th grade, right? And we're known for having bigs that pass, dribble, shoot, can move the ball, right? And that wasn't his game. Like, he was athletic, he was big, but he played so hard. He cared so much about his teammates. Like, he worked his butt off that. He was our type of human, right? And so because of that, we were like, all right, well, let's invest in him, right? Let's work to make him how we play and skilled. And, he didn't play his freshman year, didn't play his sophomore year. His junior year was the best big in the league, and senior year, one of the best bigs in the country. And, now playing overseas. So, first I'll answer that question with good players are good players, and we're going to work with you, right, to fit the system, right?
Cool.
But with that question, like, there's certainly an advantage with guys that fit the skill level mode, right? The high IQ mode. Like, that's certainly something that we do look for and we do harp on, right? So when I'm in the gym, I'm looking to see, like, do they see the next pass, right? Do they see, like, the defenders all the way in so they make the skip pass, right? What do their shooting mechanics look like? What kind of shots are they taking? So definitely there is some fit part of it, but it's hard to pass up good players. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Would you say, Coach, that the IQ level is more of a priority for you guys rather than like athleticism, right? Most, at the same, I mean, obviously you like to have a healthy mix of both, but
for sure.
I mean, I think some schools, right, depending on where you're at, you look for the athletic guy, and because think the athleticism can cover up for certain things that the IQ may not be able to.
Sure.
Right?
It is, to answer that question, like, it's really hard to recruit a kid that doesn't see the game the way we play, right? So that's a good question. Obviously, we switch a lot on defense, so athleticism laterally, vertically matters. And ideally, like you said, you want both, but we probably spend a little bit more time on the basketball IQ thing, because it's really hard we play fast. We don't call plays. We try to teach you how to play. And if you can't get a feel for that one's a hard thing to develop. That takes some time, right?
I think that's almost an interesting point. People don't realize when you say something like you don't run plays. I think people would, obviously there's the Princeton offense, Princeton style, but people would assume structure. People would assume maybe a high level of structure as far as intense structure. So for you to come out and say that you actually just teach guys to learn how to read and react, learn how to flow, learn how to make a decision on the fly instead of having to pull it out and set up every damn time down the court.
Exactly.
That, I think I'm sure that's attractive too for guys that want to play in that type of system and have some freedom.
And which at the same time, I mean, that still is structure, right? When it's done the right way. Like it looks like things are being ran when you see it in motion, you know what I mean? When it's ran the right way. So that's awesome.
Because guys know their spots, guys know where they're supposed to get to and how they're supposed to bounce off a particular decision that another teammate made or whatnot.
For sure. We talk about spacing all the time, right? So, where other teams might talk about plays and you got to be here, X, for us, it's like spacing, right? Really good spacing. We talk about really good reads. Coach Henderson will say, what'd you see? Right? That is his number one question. Offense, defense, what'd you see? Didn't you see that he went under, right? So why didn't didn't you see that he trailed that? So why didn't you, like those are the questions that we are constantly asking as a staff to our guys so that they see the game, right? Because, it's never been about plays here at Princeton. Coach Henderson's head coach was Coach Carrill, right? It's always been about spacing, putting guys in positions to be successful by teaching them how to do that, right? and thinking the game. So that's really important for us.
That's awesome. What about point guard play in particular? I know everybody thinks they're a point guard now anyway. So what are some things that stand out? What do you look for in a future Princeton point guard?
Yeah, Coach Henderson was a point guard, right? So having your head coach as a point guard, I think is great because his eyes are immediately on them, right? That was his position. He knows how to run it. And I think it's really good for the guys coming in because they can really hear from him, right, and see it. With that being said, we really recruit good guards, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a point guard,
a pure one, okay?
Because we're trying to get the ball up the court. We're not gonna. There's very few where, hey, you have it here, you're here. It's really more about let's get to the places, let's get to the spots, let's get to the spacing and make a read. Now, with that being said, you need guys that handle it, can handle pressure. But passing and leadership are to answer your questions. If we're looking at a point guard, it's do they see the game, passing, and then leadership. Are they talking to their guys? Are they communicating on defense? Are they communicating on offense? So those would be the two biggest things.
Awesome. Like I said, I assume guarding position, like you had said, being able to guard the other team's top PG is a top priority with them as well.
No doubt. It's and I'm probably jumping the gun here, but the number one question in recruiting that, when you sit down as a staff, for us at least, and you're talking about a kid, it's what positions can they guard? That's the number one question that always comes up. It's not how many points, have they scored? What do they do really well off? It's what positions can they guard? Because if the answer is, if it's only one position, it's going to be hard to recruit you, right? So that's the number one question. And so guarding is important.
Now, I mean, obviously that's relative to size, right? I mean, I think, smaller guards, right? I mean, I feel like is there a possibility for a smaller guard in today's game? Because I feel like I was probably I graduated in 2017. I feel like I was kind of in the space of like the last of them getting guards at the Division I level at the 5, below 6 feet, right? So at the same time, I'm curious to know, is it, if you have a guy that plays bigger than what he is, right? So he is a smaller guy, but can guard, a position or two higher than what he is. Is that something that you guys look for? Because I feel like that's more mindset, right?
Definitely.
Of having that dog mindset, or I'm just, I'm going to have that,
No doubt. If it's a smaller guard, the question is he going to be tough enough when he gets switched on to be tough enough to guard in the post for a second or two, right? Is he unafraid to take that challenge on, right? Because, obviously as a smaller guard, you're not necessarily, we don't necessarily want you to switch on those people, right?
Right.
So it becomes less about, maybe how many positions can you guard rather than, will you fight when you do end up on those positions? Right. So that's the real question with smaller guards.
You said you will recruit guards in general a lot instead of even specifying a particular type of guard. Does that kind of bleed into your wings? Do you actually recruit wings, or do you just recruit guards and spread them out on the wing and go from there? Does size on the wing matter?
Yeah, it does. It does because of the versatility and the switching part. Like we switch a lot. So you do need size because, if you're switching 1 through 4, right, our 1s, 2s, 3s are going to end up on 4s, right? So that is important. In terms of the recruiting part, I think for us, it's more of a skill set rather than a positional thing, right? So, all right, so we got this guy that's, he can be a lead guard that can really pass, sees the floor. Okay, we got one of those. So now let's go get a guy he switches and he can guard multiple possessions. Okay, now let's go get a guy that really makes shots, and we'll figure out how they all blend together on the court when they're here. But I think it's more of what can they do rather than what they are, right? And, where can you put them and help them be successful? And, obviously where can you develop them?
Awesome. And then leading into the forwards, obviously you have very different type of forwards on your team. You're starting, Tosan, am I pronouncing this first name right?
Yeah.
Obviously very different than a Mason Hooks off the bench. Yeah. Obviously you got a ultra athletic, super quick guy that can handle it, play inside and out, who you have starting for you. And then my guy you're bringing off the bench, who's obviously the complete opposite, almost like a old guy. I joke with Mason all the time that if he came around in the 80s and 90s, he'd be looked at very differently.
He's perfect for that.
My Lord, I'm like, you might be seen very differently. Like I said,
so true, man.
Yeah, but
so
he's
true.
not. But he's not. He's in 2021, and
So
I'm just curious because you have such a vast difference in some of the forwards you have on your roster. Is it, again, you just look for the right kind of guy and you're able to work with them, or
you know this about Mason, which not many people, I think, recruiting him knew, is that he is an excellent passer.
Yeah.
Like high level passer, right? Like he might not be able to handle it to get to his spots like Tosan can, right? Or lead the break like Tosan can. But when we throw it in, you can't dig very much and you can't double because he's an unbelievable passer. So he's certainly different than Tosan, but some of the things passing wise he can do, which help make your offense flow. And he's as smart as anyone, right? So he does things that like we haven't taught guys to do that are great, right? He does them naturally, right? So I think for us, the recruiting the forwards part, it's still much of a holistic fit within the program, right? Because a kid like Mason, he plays harder than anyone.
Yeah.
He's an excellent passer, and he finishes around the rim. So he's gonna stretch the floor one day. You've worked really hard with him.
Yeah. He's on his way. He's on his way.
He's on his way, right? Yeah. But that's not his strength yet. So he's different, right? So we have to use him in different ways while developing the other piece of it. So to really answer your question, we're really still recruiting to the holistic idea of what Princeton basketball is, and not necessarily what this forward's got to be this forward's got to be that. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Got to be able to do a little bit of everything, man.
For sure, no doubt.
Question: GPA wise, obviously, to be a regular student, parents, players wonder this all over the country all the time. I get this question a lot, so I'm happy to be able to present it to you. Obviously, to be a regular student at Princeton, you need a 4.7 or whatever. Yeah,
impossible.
Right.
Play the lottery.
So, but I have parents and players come to me all the time. Well, if I'm a recruitable basketball player, can I have a 3.6 and they get me in? Can I have a 3.8, 3.2? Like where's kind of a cutoff for a player who's a recruitable player? What what is his GPA? Obviously, I know SAT score, ACT scores. I know they factor in too. But what's kind of a GPA that you guys can get an athlete in on?
Yeah, no, good question. And I get it too, right? I get it.
Yeah, I bet.
Very popular question.
If I get it, then you get it. If I'm getting it, you're getting it. Yeah.
No doubt. But it's hard to answer that question with a number, to be honest, Mike, because it's, what school do they go to? What classes are they taking? Right? Like all those things factor in.
Okay.
There might be a kid that goes to a really high academic school that, has got a 3.4, right? And there might be a kid that doesn't go to a really academic school that has a 3.9, right? And those, it doesn't equate, right? You gotta, is the kid challenging themselves? Are they taking AP classes? Are they taking advanced classes, right? Are they taking really good, core classes and extracurriculars, or are they taking things that they can breeze by, right? I think those things all really matter, right? But, I always tell people it's A's and B's, right? And it's pushing yourself to challenge yourself in the classroom, because even if you have all A's and B's and, admissions is going to ask me, well, why isn't the kid taking this class that's really good? Or why haven't they pushed themselves to take that class? So it's not just cruising. They want to see you're taking a healthy blend of classes, challenging yourself and doing well in those classes, right? So, but certainly A's and B's, and I like to say, 3.5 and above is a good starting range. And there's some exceptions to that depending on your class load, but that's a good starting range.
But if you're pushing yourself, challenging yourself, those are all things that you could kind of take to admissions and kind of battle for the kid for. And
for sure. If they're, they're pushing themselves, they're taking some really good classes, like you can make a really good argument for that, right? Rather than, a kid breezing through, not taking good classes, not challenging himself, getting all A's,
And the human being in the admissions office understands that and has a heart about it sometimes. And
awesome. And there's a story attached with each kid, right? Princeton really goes into the person, right? Grades matter a lot, right? That gets you in the conversation, right? Like there's tons of kids in the country we can't even have conversations with, right? because grades haven't set them up to have the conversation. Now, once they're in the conversation, it's the holistic person that, okay, what's their background? What are they coming from? What are they doing? You know, what's that adversity that they've gotten through, right? You know, and then we talked about obviously the class load and challenging themselves. So all those things play a piece. But first, you have to do, you know, you have to put yourself in the conversation, which starts with your grades.
It's interesting because it's almost one of those things, like the same way you will put in extra work, right, on the court to get
For sure
those benefits. It's like you guys take that in consideration right away. Like it's almost flipped first. It's like, no, we want to see how you push yourself in the classroom, and then we'll get back to you on the basketball. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Like I got to have, you know, for me or for us here at Princeton, like we have to have your transcript before we come see you, right?
That was going to be a question of mine too. That was going to be a question. Yeah, go on.
Like I can't. I'm wasting my time if I go to a workout and I don't have your transcript, right? Yeah. Like, you know, when you're at an AAU tournament, for example, there's hundreds of coaches that sit down at a game and say, who's this guy? I really like him, right? And for us, if we don't know who that guy is, you're wasting your time, right? Because you could love the kid and he can be a great kid, and but you can't get him in. So for us, it's you have to know, you know, how I look at our job here at Princeton is that you have to know every Division I player in the country, and now it's becoming international. The kid Tosan Iwoma is from the UK. You have to know every Division I player out there that has grades that can get in, right? And I think if you're not doing that right and you're just blindly going into it, you're really wasting a lot of time.
Yeah. Like I said, you led me into another question about, like you said, other schools don't have to worry about that to the same degree. I mean, the bar is much lower academically, and so they can just see a player and jump on them. And like you said, how soon do you need to have the I mean, like you said, you need to have them before you even see the player. But is it how does that challenge change how you guys recruit compared to a such and such state school that you know that doesn't have that?
No, good question. It's, you know, I think if you're a such and such school, you hear about this really good player, right? All right, well, let's go see him. Right. For us, oh, wow, that's really, I appreciate you saying that. I called the school and I asked for the counselor and I say, hey, can you please send me Mike Teller's transcript? Right. And then I wait to get it and I get it. And then I make the decision, okay, let me go see him. Right. Or unfortunately, I can't go see him. So let me put that in the pile of that I can't recruit. Right. And, you know, we'd be able to recruit you. Right, Mike? So,
of course. Yeah. You guys missed on one a bunch of years ago. I'll tell you that.
But maybe the other guy we missed on, you know, all-time assist.
The guy down here would be the guy down here would be the better choice for sure. Definitely.
So we probably missed on him, but you know, I think it's for us, it's you have to do your work early and you have to know these things before you can, you know, even engage in the conversation or, you know, start to use your time to see him.
Quick question. AI guys. I've known a handful that have ended up successfully getting on an Ivy League roster because they have the academic resume. Maybe they're not good enough. You know, they just miss physically, athletically, whatever it is on the court to get there. You have any advice? Because I do know other guys who have phenomenal academic resumes and are dying to, you know, in essence, get the walk-on spot at an Ivy League school, which is essence, you know, those AI spots kind of end up being. You have any advice for an AI guy like that, a guy with an amazing academic resume who might not be talented enough for you to recruit him, but if you have an AI spot open or really on any Ivy League spot, is there any advice on how that kid can kind of get in the door and kind of snag a spot like that?
Yeah, that one's hard because, to be honest with you, you know, the last couple of years you haven't needed the SAT, right? Because of COVID, it's made it harder to take it. And without the SAT, there's not as many AI guys, to be completely honest with you, right?
Gotcha.
So those spots aren't the same.
But in a couple of years, it might come back, right?
Yeah, potentially, right? Potentially. So that one's a hard one because I just think you got to work at both. You know, we're looking at you, you know, as a recruited player, not as an AI or not as a walk-on. Like we're looking at you as the best fit for our program, right? And so I think all the things that we've already talked about, the character of the kid,
for sure.
Obviously, the academics is going to be in line and going to be really good. And then, you know, you got to keep working to be the recruited, you know, player. And So I just think keeping your head down and grinding and doing all the things the right way helps you, whatever level, however you're being recruited.
Down the road. Awesome. Okay, cool. Because guys do wonder about that. So I'm glad to hear you speak on it and at least let them know the truth and what goes into it. For an incoming freshman at Princeton, what's the full package load feel like? Obviously, academically, it has its own insane regimen. Just being a Division I basketball player has its own incredible demands. But how much academic help is there for a basketball player on campus? You know what I'm saying? How any advice for an incoming freshman, like a heads up on what to expect for their daily regimen?
Yeah, I think anywhere probably, being a freshman anywhere, right, and being a Division I player, anywhere, not even Princeton is not only Princeton is challenging, right? Because there's just a time management part, right? Classes are harder, basketball's more demanding, right? You're in this new environment that you've never been in. It's a growing process. So that in general, like, is really challenging, and time management is really challenging. Here at Princeton, all the same, right? But I think for those that, and I'll just start with this, for those guys that are most successful, they learn how to ask for help early, right? They learn how to use the resources that are here at Princeton. There are a ton of resources. And
like what? Because some families and parents, players don't know.
Yeah. So the resources here, they're all the same for the student population, not just basketball. So we have a free tutoring center for all students. We have a free writing center for all students here at Princeton, right? We have, the school is broken up into different colleges, which you're getting placed in as a freshman. They all have deans of the college. They all have a full faculty and staff at that college. That's another support system. Then when you get into the weeds of, just basketball, we have what we call faculty fellows. And you can go on our roster and you can, Google these faculty fellows, and they're professors in different disciplines of study, right? So we have the head of the econ department, Gene Grossman, is one of Princeton basketball's faculty fellows, right? So that, our guys know, hey, if I have, this econ thing coming up, I should probably go speak to Gene, or if I have this, I should speak to this person, right? And so they're faculty members throughout different disciplines of the university that come to practices, come to all home games,
practices.
Come to some away games. They don't come to all practices, but they'll stop by, right? So there's a lot of resources for basketball, but there's even more resources just for the whole student body. And so getting back to what I was saying is the guys that learn early that I should ask for help. I should go to office hours, right? I should go to the tutoring center. I should go to the writing. Those are the ones that thrive. The ones that take some time because they were, high school came easy to them, right? And like, I can do this. I can figure this out. And those are the ones that seem to have a little bit more of a struggle because they're less willing to use the resources here.
That definitely sounds pretty demanding too. So with that being said, do you still look for your guys to come in and get extra work on court, even with that type of schedule? Is that something that you guys track, or is it one of those things where practice is practice, you handle your schoolwork and that's kind of it, or do you look for your guys to come in, whether it's early morning or back in late at night, whenever some things get done, and try to get an extra hour of some work in so you can continue that development?
Yeah, we try to actually knock that out in the recruiting process, right? Like we try to find those guys that want to be great, right? And, you come to Princeton for a lot of reasons, right? And obviously the academic piece and, what life after basketball looks like is a huge part of the draw to this place. But for us, we want those guys that, they want those things, but they also want to be great on the basketball court, right? Like they want to they want to go to the NBA. They want to play overseas. Like we recruit those guys, right? And so to answer your question is the good players do. Yeah, the good players are here in the morning. Our gym is always open. They're here in the morning. They come to practice. They're here after practice, right? So those guys figure out how to manage their time so that, in college, you have more time than high school. You're not in class from, 8 to 3. You have here 4 classes per semester for the most part. So you have 2 to 3 classes a day spread out. So you have to figure out what type of guy. Are you a morning guy? Are you a night guy? And once you start to figure that out, us as coaches are always here. We're always in the gym. We're always ready to put in extra work, right? And so the best players we've had are the ones that put in the work and live in the gym, right? And are gym rats. So I think that's no different here than, anywhere in the country.
Yep.
Do you ever find, I mean, how often does a player struggle academically? Because people from the outside would assume you get into Princeton, you're obviously insanely dialed in academically one way or the other. You're on a basketball team. You should be comfortable being vocal, speaking up for yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's a characteristic that's needed to succeed on the basketball court too. Is how often does a player struggle academically on a team?
It's at some point in time you struggle here. Like there's no way around it. There's
Okay,
no one we've ever had
that hasn't had
in my
issue.
time that hasn't had their struggles, right? It's just the reality of it, right? You face ups and downs, right? And so you definitely struggle. But with that being said, everyone's graduated that we've ever had in Coach Henderson's time. They all graduate. They all make it through, right? And they all learn how to struggle and get through it. I think one of the most amazing things at Princeton is it teaches you how to fail. I think that's the real answer to your question. You fail for sure here.
That's how you grow. That's your best growth comes from that too. Like that's your best
for
growth
sure. For sure.
But
how do you get back up, right?
I would assume that would be a shock, especially in the classroom, to a chunk of those guys who, if you're at Princeton, you have not failed very often in the classroom because just even like you said, you can't even get a C and really end up on a campus. So forget failing. You can't even be average for a minute. So how do players handle that? How do they handle hitting some adversity in the classroom, even for the first time, possibly?
It's hard, right? Like each one's a little different, right? For the first time, some of these guys, and some of them not, like some of them been really challenged in high school, right? But for some of them academically, like it's the first time where they really are challenged, right? And they're facing these things, and then they come down to basketball and they're really challenged some more, right? And so for these guys, it's our job is to support them, right, and be there for them, and you coach them really hard, and then you put your arm around them after practice, right? And like, hey, what do you need? Hey, how are you doing, right? And for us, we have mental health resources here.
I was going to ask that next. How's the sports psychology? You guys got to put your sports psych hat on, psychology hat on yourselves, probably.
For sure. We have a sports psychologist that meets with student athletes. Yep. We have awesome. He meets with tons of student athletes. We have our own center. The university does that has multiple psychologists on campus that you can schedule meetings with, right? And we try to really encourage that, right? Good. Because I think even if you feel like you haven't hit rock bottom or you feel like you're doing well, like it's still really healthy to talk to people, right? It's really healthy to express how you're feeling, to express things you're going through, even if you're feeling great, right? And so us as a staff, we try to really encourage it. Coach Henderson's been on the forefront of that, right? Really encouraging, being really honest about your mental health and speaking up and being vulnerable, right? We talk to our guys all the time about being vulnerable. That's really hard for, not only a basketball player, but for a male in our society, right? Is being vulnerable.
Yes.
Right. And so, we try to talk about that a lot here is be vulnerable. Let us in, let your teammates in, right? Let, the sports psychologists in, let us help you. Right. And so you definitely struggle. There's tons of resources to help you get through that struggle. And like you said, once you learn to get past it or maybe not even get past it, but you've learned to express yourself in the right ways and learn to help yourself, then, you're growing and that's how you get the biggest growth.
Go on, Jay.
I was just saying, man, it's one of like closed mouths don't get fed, right? Like
no doubt. That's
like
it.
Whether it's off the court or on the court, like if you need the help, if you don't say anything, I mean, it's you're at an age now in college where you don't have mom or dad to be like, hey, is everything okay with you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to speak up, and when you speak up, that help will be there for you. But if not, it can be tough to go through by yourself. So that's also have that type of support system at the school. You know what I mean, on both sides.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. You can't. That's the most. Listen, like we want to win games here, right? But the most important part is, we want you to grow as people, right? And a huge part of growth is learning to speak up for yourself, right? And learning that. So that's a huge part here.
And the fact that you say that every player eventually fails, and yet every player has eventually graduated is a huge building block for that person as a human being for the rest of their life, knowing that they have failed and they've seen themselves through that and reach the height after failing is something that lasts forever. I mean, we, you know, anytime any of us have failed at something and then conquered it, that doesn't go away. You remember that forever. You take that with you forever, and any other struggle or obstacle that may pop in front of you, you have something to stand on. So the fact that you guys put everyone through that, or it ends up happening organically at a place like Princeton, and then they all see themselves out of it and succeed through it is huge.
That's the magical part about this place, right? Is that all of a sudden in 4 years, you failed, you've gotten back up, you graduated the #1 school in the country, and you know, you're ready for anything in life. You know, you've done a little bit of everything in your 4 years, right? So I think that's the magical part of this place, especially.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm gonna take a quick pivot and ask you about the transfer portal. And I'm curious how the transfer portal has affected Princeton, has affected the Ivy League as a whole. Obviously, you guys have different academic requirements than other schools that can grab a guy here, grab a guy there. So I'd like to know how the portal has affected you guys at Princeton, the Ivy Leagues, and how it specifically affected your high school recruiting as well.
Yeah. First, it's affected the whole landscape of college basketball, right?
Yep.
However, Princeton and the Ivy League are affected in a little different way, right? Sure. So we don't take transfers here at Princeton. We haven't had a transfer in 30 years. No one leaves here transfers.
Because I've seen it at other Ivy League schools. I've seen guys bounce from other Ivy League schools, I'll say.
Yes. So we haven't had, in Coach Henderson's time, we've never had a transfer leave. Now, we've had grad transfers, and I'll talk about that next. Okay. But we've never had anyone leave their career, mid-career, to transfer. Now, with COVID, that's really changed the game with the transfer portal, because the Ivy League only gives you 4 years to compete. So you have now 4 classes that are going to lose a year of Ivy eligibility, that will have another year of NCAA eligibility that they can't use here at Princeton, for example.
Or any of the other Ivy League schools at that point.
Correct. Or any of the other Ivy League schools. So that's been the huge part, is that, so for example, we had kid Ryan Schwieger and Jerome DeRosier that were seniors last year, but they only got to play 3 years because we didn't have a season, right? Last year. But they couldn't come back to Princeton to play. Right. So that's what made it hard, is that they would have loved to come. We would have loved to have them back, but Princeton is still only giving you a 4-year window, or not Princeton. The Ivy League is only giving you a 4-year window
from the time you start, right?
From the time you start to play. So, you know, those guys have to matriculate, right? Those guys have to move on, right? And so, you know, Ryan went to Loyola Chicago, is doing great, and Jerome's doing great at Hawaii, right? So, you know,
those were like forced transfers.
Those are like, you got to get out the door. You can't stay any longer.
It wasn't that they thought the grass was greener. It's just they literally were not allowed to play anymore for
exactly.
You guys. So.
Exactly, right? And so we're going to have the same thing happen this year with, you know, we have a really good senior class. You know, 3 of them start for us and are awesome. And the shame is that they're only getting 3 years of Ivy League basketball, right? Because their academic matriculation is a senior, so they have to move on. And the same thing behind them, and it's going to affect 3 more classes this way because of COVID. So that's really changed the game, that now our guys are moving on with extra year of eligibility. But in terms of before COVID, it didn't, you know, the transfer portal didn't affect us here. Some of our other teams in our league can take transfers, but we're not one of them, so we weren't involved in that.
So do you feel it's affected your high school recruiting less than maybe a bunch of other schools, because they have to continue to move on anyway? So they're not allowed to repeat the year. You're not allowed to take a transfer instead of a high school recruit. So feels like in the Ivy League has almost stayed closer to the status quo.
Couldn't be that. That's perfect way. Like you described it perfectly, right? There is a huge backlog in college basketball at every other school but the Ivy League, because players are getting another year of eligibility that they can use there. So the season ends and you don't know what players are staying. You don't know what players are leaving. Everyone's transferring. You're recruiting more transfers. You're not recruiting high school kids, right? And so a lot of good high school kids get looked over because, you know, a lot of coaches and teams are looking for the quick fix of a transfer, an older guy, right? And
yes,
for us, we're just recruiting high school kids. We're taking the same amount because our seniors graduate and our juniors become seniors and our sophomore, so for us that hasn't changed, and I think that's a real positive for the high school kids.
Real positive, because all the other interviews we've been doing, it's doom and gloom a lot of the time when we bring up this topic.
Yeah, so it's a huge advantage for us because we're recruiting you to play, right? And we're able to recruit the same amount, a healthy, a balanced class. And, that when you come in, we're not going to add a transfer in a month, in a week, in 2 weeks, right? What
even next year,
next year, what we are, who we are, and what the program is. So I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah. Not knowing there's not going to be a junior that's going to hop in ahead of you all of a sudden that you never met before, that you had no idea was coming.
Exactly. And in the same breath, like, who your teammates are. You're not going to have somebody that's leaving, mid-year, right before season starts. Like, our team is what it is, right?
Second semester, sit out and all that. Yeah.
Keeps the chemistry there. Chemistry is there. Chemistry. I feel like the relationships, man, guys can probably, guys can get on each other and it's all love after, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a different type of bond with good teams like you guys, man, because that goes a long way compared to, right, you try to put the pieces here and then you get rid of that because everybody has egos, man. But if you can try to have everybody on the same wavelength, it could definitely be a good thing. So that's cool that you guys do that. That I'm sure to a recruit that feels, at least you feel good about it. I mean, hopefully you come in with some good guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what, Jay? It's a huge part is like also development piece. Like, exactly. There's you're developing. Like, you go from freshman to sophomore is a huge jump, right? And we expect our seniors to lead and our juniors to learn. If you're here for 4 years, you really get that, right? And if you go from here to a different place, I feel that your growth is a little bit stunted, right?
Yes.
No. The culture is within the program the entire time. When you have seniors and then you got the sophomores that become juniors, it's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
you're going to be invested in. You know you're going to matter, and maybe even matter more and more as the years go by, which is what it's supposed to be, right?
And it's one of those things too when you are recruiting, right, with the guy you just spoke about. I forgot his name, but the one that you had to develop and he finally.
Yeah, Richmond,
the big, then he now plays overseas. I mean, for recruiting things, like, look, man, this dude right here came in, didn't probably play X amount, but he stuck with it. He did his 4 years. Now look where he's at. I mean, that's if you ask me, that's a pretty easy recruiting gig, right?
Easy sell right there.
It's an easy sell, so.
And it's so good, I'm glad I was going to say that next. Like, it's so good for our guys, right? Like, we have really talented freshmen right now that aren't playing, right? And it's so good. You say, well, look at this guy, like Tosan Iwoma, who's I think one of the best players in the league.
He is. I could say it for you. He is.
Thank you. All right.
So
he's up there, right? He wasn't playing as much as a freshman, right? Like, he didn't play much in the so you can look at this guy. Like, look at your upperclassman that you see and you think is all perfect, and you think that it's all been rainbows for him. He's gone through the same thing of, grinding and having to get better and having to work and not playing and sticking with it. And now look where he's at.
Now he's going to be all league. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now he's,
Exactly.
How about for an unknown player, a player somewhere in the country that you'd like to see, that he is good enough for you, but you have no idea who he is, where he is? Any advice for that player out there somewhere in the country that, like I said, someone that you actually would love to discover? Any advice for him on how to reach out to you, let you know he exists, let you know? I mean, what are those steps as far as to get a hold of you, or at least get your attention?
You have to do, like, when you're in one of those situations, right? You have to do, you got to work for yourself a little bit. And what I mean by that is, like, you have to be your own advocate. So, I always tell kids they should put together a full game, a highlight, their transcript. If they have test scores, like, put that all together, write your name, write who you are, and send the email, right? And it's better to send it from yourself, right? You get all these, we as college coaches get all these emails from all these different recruiting places and
services.
Services. And it will say, hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. this is in regards to this university. And like, you'd laugh at the amount of times it says, you know, hey, my name is X and this is for, you know, Columbia. Like they just sent it to everyone, and like you can sniff those out, and you know, those
delete those and probably delete those immediately
and delete them, right? And delete them. So, you know, it's more real if you write, you know, you really take the time to figure out the schools you're interested in, right? Put together all that information, you know, we just talked about, and write a message to myself. And I check all my emails. I try to get back to every single person, right? I try to watch every kid that sends me a link, I will watch, right? And so I think it's valuable. I think reach out to the ones that you're interested in, put together that information and put it all there. Like, don't have me have to chase down, all right, what's your transcript? If you have a test score, what's your test score, right? Can I get a game film? Like if you put that all in front of me, the recruiting process can go a lot smoother.
The unknown player has to show how much he's really extra prepared and then do extra work.
Yeah, so because you know,
I might send something to I might have to send something. I don't know, send something to the coaching staff too. Like, hey, coaches, I really want to be a part of this, coach. Here's some Chick-fil-A gift cards or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's smart, man.
Man.
Oh man, but no, it's you know, you just don't have as many people maybe advocating for you, right? And so you know, the ones that you do, if you're an unknown player and you have a really good high school coach that you respect, have him reach out to us, right? And say, that always means something when the coach reaches out and say, hey, I have a really good player. I think you should look at him. I really appreciate that, right? I really value that. Hey, you coach, whatever it is, if you have someone in your life that you respect, you know,
that'll vouch for you.
That will vouch for you. Then make your goals and make your ambitions known to them, right? Don't just assume that it's going to come to you. Like, go get it a little bit, right? And I think that's how I found some unknown players.
I was going to ask you that next. Has it ever worked? Have you ever had guys reach out to you and ended up being good enough and you're like, holy cow, thank you for reaching out, check him out, everything checks, and you actually like a guy and go after him? Has it worked?
Tosan wasn't necessarily unknown. He played for the UK national team, but he wasn't at first very highly recruited, right? And he had his people reach out to us and say, hey, we have this player, I think he'd be a really good fit, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, being international, it's a little bit harder recruiting wise. And, you know, we watched this film, we connected with them, and, you know, all of a sudden we were recruiting this kid that we had never heard about. Right. And so it has worked. It's worked even in the extent where like unknown player then all of a sudden becomes known, right? It only takes one school to see you to then become seen, right? You only need one school to love you. So, you know, it definitely has worked.
That's awesome. That's big for people to know that too, because I do think that I think people don't do it correctly all the time as far as how they're trying to reach out and do it. Like you said, there's different ways that they screw that up. And then I do think there's people that doubt that it even works, that they just assume that you guys get 7,000 emails and you probably don't even check, you know, you check a couple.
Them all. Check them all, man. I just think it's, you know, too precious of a, you know, thing not to check. Right. And so I check them all. I watch the videos all, right? And, you know, I'll sometimes make a determination and, you know, I might not watch all the 6 videos you send me, but, you know, I'm definitely going to watch it. I'm definitely going to read your email. So definitely send it.
And like you said, from the, you know, it's worth it for you. It's too precious for you to not check it, but it's on their end too. It should be too precious not to send.
Exactly.
You know? Like if you want it that bad, someone else is sending it. And possibly catching your eye. So
it's you just, you know, it can't happen if you don't try, right? So you got to try.
Yeah, and and as you know, especially a school like Princeton, there's thousands of guys across the country that are dying to get on your radar, and so knowing the best way to do it could separate you and maybe change the course of your career, your life.
Definitely,
all that,
no doubt, for sure.
How about some common mistakes? Common mistakes that you think players make, families make? It could be players, families, could be on the court, off the court. Any mistakes you see and you're like, oh, there we go again. He's doing this, thinking this, assuming this, you know, any common mistakes from a, you know, player or, you know, parent point of view?
Yeah. I think the oversell, right? Like if you let your game speak for yourself, once you're on, you know, in the radar, once you're in the conversation, then we're going to decide. It's not going to be you tell me, right?
Just go hoop.
Yeah, we're going to watch it. Like we've never taken a player because their family, their coaches. I said, he's so good. I've seen him do this, that, and the fourth.
Yeah.
Like, we've never taken it. We're going to decide with our own eyes, right? So once you're in the table, in the conversation, like, let your game speak for it. Like, be really humble about it, right? Let us make the determination. You don't need to tell us everything, right? So I think that's a huge mistake that, whether it's parents over involved, right? Whether it's like, you might be shocked to hear this, but, we, especially in COVID, we did a bunch of Zooms, right? And me and Coach Henderson were in one Zoom, and we were recruiting this kid, and Coach would go to ask the kid something, and his parent would respond. But we asked the kid, we said, hey, X, what do you think about this? And all of a sudden he's almost going to respond, but his parents respond for him. And, that's not going to work here.
No,
it's not going to work here.
It shouldn't work anywhere, really. It shouldn't work anywhere at that age.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the oversell, the over, parents getting involved, I think that can be a mistake.
That was actually going to be another question, is have you ever, parent wise, because obviously you're in this business long enough, you've seen all different type of parents. And so, Jeremy's seen it his way. I've seen it in my world. You've seen it in your world. Have you ever had a parent like seriously negatively affect a recruitment? Yes,
we've, and I won't go into details, but
no, we don't need names. Yeah.
But we've had a parent that is, for lack of better terms, ruined the kid's recruitment, right? Like, we liked them a lot. We wanted him here. And their parents' demeanor, mindset, attitude, demands, this, that, and the fourth. And it wasn't demands of money or anything illegal.
But can we get some details about what they did, or what?
It was them saying, my kid needs to be playing this, or he needs to be in a situation where he's getting this, right? You have to do this for him on the court, right? And like, that's never going to work, right? That shouldn't work anywhere, but certainly not working here.
Right.
And it was, my kid does this, and he's so fat, he's so great at this and that and that. And like, you could tell that if a kid wasn't playing, the kid had been raised now to, he, should be playing no matter what. The parents expecting, like, it was just unreal expectations that weren't going to work here. So it really hurt his recruitment. And that's one of a dozen stories, right, that I can get into, tell you how, went to a game and, parents yelling at the refs, went to the game and, the parents only cheering for their kid, even when they're losing. Like, that's one of many stories that will ruin your recruitment so fast.
Do you watch parents?
Yes, absolutely.
That's big. Yeah, because people don't realize that too. I deal with parents all the time, and they assume, or not they general, but some of them will assume that it's not about, they can act any type of way. And if the kid is balling, then that's all that's going to matter.
No, we're, this is very much a family atmosphere here, right? Like, we're taking, we're taking the kid, and, but you're constantly dealing with the parents in certain areas. Right. And, so I just think, for us, it's a holistic situation. And so we watch the parents, we get to know the parents. So, we develop those relationships to see if it's a fit for us.
Parents. So as your parent, obviously you're not going to take a kid because of the parent, but the parent can help slightly too, right? A percentage point here or there, as far as, being on the helpful side as opposed to the hurtful side.
Exactly. Just the parent, like, having open conversations, being honest, being realistic, right?
Realistic. Now there's a word right there, my man. There's a word right there.
Huge, right? It's huge. So I think just them and a lot of, like, the parents letting the kid do a lot of it. That's a huge part. Like, just letting the kid build a relationship and not micromanaging a relationship and letting them make some decisions, right? I think that's a huge plus, right? You're like, okay, well, you can see that they're letting their kid develop, and they're going to let us coach him hard, right? And they've been through that. And so I think that's, a huge plus.
It's their recruitment. It's yours.
Exactly. They don't understand that. Right. And so I think the families that do understand that are the ones that we get along with a little bit better. Right. And it just makes it a little bit easier for us.
I feel for you, man. I thought it ended at AAU, man. I thought some of that stuff at least ended at AAU, and you guys at least were spared.
Well, listen, we get to maybe pick a little bit more and be a little bit more,
of course,
picky about it. So
as you should. But Hey, Coach, we appreciate this so much, man. We appreciate you coming on here, dropping all these gems, sharing your insights. I mean, there's, like I said at the beginning, there'll be people across not just the country, but the world who dream of playing at Princeton and who dream of impressing you, who dream of having you walk in the gym and they catch your eye and, they have their Princeton dreams on their walls and been thinking about it forever. So I just like to wrap up with this. Any final bit of advice, just general advice, like you have a son one day who's about to, if and when you have a son one day, I don't know if you do or not, but if and when you have a son one day that tries to navigate this journey of realizing their college basketball dreams, any final bit of general advice?
Well, the first thing I'll say, if I have a son one day, I'm going to need the genetics to come, from something different, because hopefully from my wife, because
you got to pick the right girl. Yeah, that's
number one.
That won't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think it's the cliche things that you hear, like grind, work, be well-rounded, right? Like put your time into those things, like be humble about your business. I think those are the things that people in general get attracted to, want to be around you, right? Like you don't want to be around someone that's just talking about themselves. You want to be someone that's about the team, about the program, right? So think about those things when you're in the gym, right? When no one's watching and when someone's watching, right? Like that shouldn't determine who you are and what your behavior is, right? Be real about it. And the final thing I'll say is like, you have to be open to coaching, right? And that's coaching in life. That's whether a teacher's telling you, a parent, a coach, whatever it is, like you got to be really open to taking that, learning from that and getting better. Because if you think you have all the answers, if you think you can't, too good to get better, then you're never going to get to the level which you aspire to be.
Yep.
Right. And so, for us, it's be well-rounded, and that's, I think can contribute to everywhere in life. And that's the best way to make things happen to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Coach.
Awesome.
I know you guys tip off in a couple hour and a half in a couple hours. So good luck, man. Good luck.
I appreciate it, guys.
Go get another damn win. I'm not going to say who you're playing, because if I end up talking to that coach, I don't want him to know that I was rooting for you guys.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But,
I
man.
appreciate you guys. I had a really good time, and if I can ever help, kids that you're working with, or anything I can do, let me know. I've appreciated you guys. So.
Well, I can already vouch for you and your involvement in your players. The fact that I've been working with one of your players now, Mason Hooks, for all these years, and you've reached out, we've been in contact. You're sending me videos and clips of guys that play the position that you want him to be able to emulate, things you wanted to be able to do. So the fact that you've been that invested with me, guys don't always go to that extra length to reach out to the trainer and, make sure that everything's being tailored appropriately to what he's going to need to be able to do once he gets to your campus. So I'm certainly a fan of yours.
I appreciate it.
I'm excited. I'm excited for your future with all of it. So you'll know, you'll be hearing from us. You're part of the family now. That's for sure.
I appreciate it.
So good luck tonight, man. Go get that win. I'll be checking for sure.
All right.
And, man, you'll be hearing from us. And like I said, we appreciate this so much. And so does, and I'll speak for everybody around who's watching this, man. This is great info. Great info.
I appreciate it, guys. Well, good. We'll talk soon, and hopefully we get the W tonight. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go get him. Go get him, Coach. All right.